Hello, everyone on Facebook, YouTube, and our podcast. My name is Josh Oakes with smartsocial.com. And today we're going to talk about trust and civility in a challenging world. And we're all familiar that things are happening all around our children, but I want to make sure that you have tips and tactics in a practical and tactical way that you can use to keep your kids safe online. So today, live from Washington, D.C., I have Stephen Balkam, and he is the CEO of the Family Online Safety Institute, and he's coming at us live, and he's spending time with us to talk to us about how to keep your kids safe. Stephen, welcome to the video.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, Stephen, you're the CEO of FOSI.org, which is the Family Online Safety Institute. People, perhaps educators, are familiar with that. And you're hosting a huge conference coming up here soon, November 16th in Washington, D.C., but let's dive on into some new developments as you get to work with Snapchat and Facebook and Google and all these bigger organizations to create policy around safety. Talk to us about how new connected toys and some of the new things that are happening in homes that maybe some of us aren't thinking about could affect how our kids are being seen online.
Yeah, so we're actually going to be launching new research on November 16th at the conference, which we're holding at the Newseum, by the way, in Washington, D.C., and it's called Connected Families, how parents feel and think about connected toys, wearables, and the Internet of Things. And we think it's the first of its kind. I don't think parents have ever been asked these questions. What are your hopes and aspirations for your kids, but also what are your fears and concerns? Everything from Hello Barbie and Dino the talking dinosaur that's connected to IBM's Watson, all the way over to Amazon's Alexa, Siri, and OK Google, that kids just take to very naturally. They'll walk into a kitchen and just start talking to Alexa, asking it ridiculous questions, and even barking orders at it. So this will be laying out in just 2 weeks' time.
That's interesting. And you said there's not only are connected toys a big issue, and those of you parents that are watching this, if you have younger kids that might have a doll that's connected to the web and it can listen and has a camera in it, these are things we need to worry about because sometimes those cameras can get hacked, right? And then also, you brought up a really good point, Stephen, in that when kids are starting to bark orders to Alexa, first of all, some parents are saying, hey, just go ask Siri, go ask Alexa that question. So kids will run over there, be frustrated, and not say please or thank you, but just rather just bark orders at it. And then they start to turn around and talk to their parents that way sometimes too. Are these the trends you're seeing?
We're just starting to see this new development. Parents complaining to us that their kids are acting towards them the way they would do to an artificially intelligent box in the room. And my hope is that in future, Alexa and Siri and the others will demand pleases and thank yous. I find myself almost unconsciously thanking my Alexa, and she always says you're welcome afterwards, but there's no, it hasn't been coded in yet, shall we say.
Yeah, it's an interesting setting. Hey, encourage our family to be polite online. Okay, so let's talk also about some other trends that you're seeing. You guys are going to talk a lot about, and I know you're going to talk a lot about how media and everybody else is setting an example for our kids. What are some things that parents can do at home to set a more positive example for their kids so that the outside world isn't pressuring them to behave in a certain way?
Well, first and foremost, we say to parents to check their own media use and their own technology use. Last week, Comcast came out with a survey that showed that 52% of parents had admitted that their kids had asked them to put their phones down at dinner time. That's extraordinary. The kids are complaining to us that they can't get their parents' attention because they're constantly on their phones or on their laptops. So we have to curb our own addictions, shall we say, to the technology and provide a good set of examples, both in the way how often we use it, but how we use them as well. And to model that good digital citizenship online.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, so there's a lot going on right now, and we really are in the wild, wild west right now as well, because at this point in time, parents are giving their kids a phone without really even driving rules. We would never give a kid a car without going through the DMV and checkpoints and making sure kids are safe and insured and all this stuff. But we seem to be giving them phones at that time. And 10 years from now, we'll look back and I think we'll all kind of laugh and giggle and say, can you believe we used to do that back in the day?
Right. Well, you know, what's really interesting is we've just seen this incredible precipitous drop in the age with which kids get smartphones. You know, they used to ask us, should I get my high schooler an iPhone? And then it became, what about our middle schooler?
Yeah.
And now we're finding kids in kindergarten showing up with mom and dad's old iPhone. And I sometimes wonder if they realize what they're handing their kids, a supercomputer in their hands, which, by the way, the last thing they ever use it for is to phone.
Yeah.
You know, we use it, a lot of parents think, oh, well, at least this will be a safety valve. I'll be able to get hold of my child in an emergency. Well, there are plenty of very dumb phones, or for that matter, just dumb tracking devices that you could use if that's your main concern. So don't just hand over your 7-year-old more computing power than NASA had to put someone on the moon back in the 60s.
Yeah, it's true. You know, Screenagers is a big show that is being shown in schools all over the country. I interviewed the producer of it, who now has a new show called Angst. It's a movie that schools can rent for $300 to $500 for a showing. And that's Angst is all about anxiety. But in Screenagers, they show I think the first scene is walking into an AT&T store where a young girl asks her mom and starts crying and says, I want a phone. And the mom goes, all right, we'll buy you a phone. And she tries to buy her daughter a flip phone, a dumb phone, like you said, which is good because they want the phone part. And there's some texting you can do there too. And the young woman, the girl, throws a fit and says, I want a smartphone. I want it. And starts crying. And so the mom buys her a smartphone because she wants to be like everybody else.
Right. Well, so we're seeing that particularly amongst parents who themselves adopt technology and have many devices themselves. But there is an interesting subset of parents who are pushing this off, and to a later and later age. We'll have some stats on the 16th when we release the report that shows that rather interesting gap between the early adopting parents or the heavy adopting parents and those who are more skeptical and wanting to push off both the advent of their child having a cell phone and, for that matter, getting onto social media.
Yeah, and we'll be able to find that at foci.org. Is that correct?
On the 16th, yeah.
Yeah, on the 16th. That's great. Okay, so for all of you parents that are watching, remember one of the things that we all believe, and I would like your input on here as well, Stephen, is the number one safety app that's going to protect your child is a healthy dialogue with your kids, not only just about their future, but about what could go wrong and really staying close to them and knowing what's on that device. We talked to a lot of parents about how if you bought your kid a car, would you want to have a set of keys to that car? Absolutely. Would you want to have access to it, right? And if your kid is young as well, would you want to have access to that phone? And they think the phones are different, but sometimes they're not. Stephen, what is your opinion on that?
So our most popular download on our site is the 7 Steps to Good Digital Parenting. And number 1 is, not surprisingly, talk with your kids. Keep that dialogue going. It's not the birds and the bees conversation. It's not one and done. You've got to keep it going. Yeah. Particularly when there are, 1,000 new apps uploaded to the iStore every day. It's extraordinary how many are there. So that's number 1. Number 2, and it goes back to being a good digital role model. When I talk to parents at PTA meetings, I ask them, how many of you use your phone as an alarm clock? And most of the hands go up and they have big smiles on their faces. And I said, no, don't do that. And the reason is, if you use it as an alarm clock, what's the last thing you're going to look at night? And what's the first thing you're going to look at even before you get out of bed and brush your teeth? Oh, so and true. Parents come into kids come into their parents' rooms and they see this. They see it at night, they see it in the morning, and so they want to have their phones in bed with them too.
Yeah.
No, have a closet downstairs, somewhere else. Park the technology. Make sure everyone is recharging it in the same closet. Yeah. Turn off the router. Just do simple things to create non-tech zones and time zones in your home.
I like that. Non-tech zones and non-tech time zones. I like that. That's cool. We'll transcribe that out here. That's really awesome. Non-tech zones, non-tech time zones. Is there any other things that, based on frustrations that parents might have right now, that you would tell them based on your feedback, the data, the research that your team is looking at?
The other thing I suppose is it's okay to say no. I had a parent of a 17-year-old in a high school ask me, is it okay if I take my daughter's phone away? Because she's not doing her homework, she's not sleeping, she's falling asleep in class. And I said, who bought the phone? She said, I do. Who pays the monthly charge? I do. Well, it's your phone. So just retrieve it for 24 hours. Take it away for 48 hours. Whatever is needed to jolt your daughter into a realization that things have got out of control.
Yeah.
By the way, also check online. Verizon, AT&T, most of the main providers give you a very, very detailed bill that you can see when all the texts have come in and gone out. You don't see the contents, but you can tell if your kid, and my daughter was one of them, was texting at 2 or 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
Or texting during history class. I mean, they've become extremely adept at, texting under their desk.
Yep.
So check in and have that conversation. Do it in a dispassionate way. Don't get heavy-handed and yell and shoot the laptop as that dad in Tennessee did a few years ago. But have a reasonable conversation, typically based on some kind of contract. We have one. I know there's many out there that you can download. Just look for family safety contract and sit down and figure out the rules of the road with your kids.
Very wise. Those are some great tips. Stephen, I want to thank you for being with us here today. Those of you that are joining us here, remember we have something called Parent University. If you're tired of being the parent that's always telling your kid what not to do, we have videos that you watch with your kids, why they shouldn't share their password. You tell them what not to do, but do you always have the time to tell them the what, the when, the where, the why, to show them the example of what could go wrong? No, you mean well, but sometimes you don't have that whole story with you. So what we do is we show the what, where, why, how, and we tell a story with the kids. So we become the bad person. An engaging outsider sometimes is easier to get the attention of your children. We teach them how to get kicked out of Harvard with just one post, how to get fired with one tweet, and all of a sudden everything that could go wrong and then everything that could go right. We teach them how to monitor their image on Google, and we show them at a young age how to think like an adult so that they'll someday police themselves and make your job as a parent just a little bit easier. It's called Parent University at smartsocial.com. Stephen, I want to thank you for being here with us today and all that you do to protect kids.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it, and I love your work too.
Thank you so much. For all of you that are watching us or listening to us, you can learn more at smartsocial.com, and you can go learn about Stephen's work at fosi.org. That's FOSI.org. I'll see you guys all on the next broadcast. See you soon.